kiss and never see you again. Okay, I'm going to just say a few things, and I'm going to hand it over to Maddie in a minute. First, I just want to say this. Interregnum has been fabulous. I love Interregnum. It's my highlights of the year. It is quintessentially Kings in so many ways. I love watching the debates. You guys have done awesome. Performing arts, digital art. It really has been a tremendous time. And even brought off working in one of my favorite rock bands, Iron Maiden. So I Interregnum committee. So Addie, Amara, Ellie, Kaylee, Elizabeth. Who am I missing?
Abby.
Oh, yeah, Abby. Dr. Tubbs, Letitia. Let's give them a round of applause. You said on Wednesday night, stuck in my head, you said, if this is the last Interregnum, let's go out with a bang.
Yeah!
And we've done just that. You guys have done amazing. I'm just immensely proud and thankful to be part of this community at King's College. So thank you all of you. Okay, so secondly, I want to say this. I know this has been not the easiest of seasons for all of us. I know it's been a time of uncertainty, stress, angst, with this cloud looming over our heads. Are we going to be here or not? And I know that it's been hard for you students. It's been hard as well for staff, for faculty, for all of us. So I want to acknowledge that, recognize that. But I must say too, I'm incredibly proud of all of you, the way you've responded, the way you've engaged this community, the way you've come together in prayer, doing house retreats, executive teams, the way you've led. It's been incredible to see this community come together. Staff and faculty, the way staff and faculty work closely together than ever to really fight for the future of the King's College. And so I am just glad and privileged to be part of this community, frankly. Now, I want to say this. I know that some of you, because I've talked to you, think that we are closing. We just haven't said that. That was a conversation today. Like, we're closing. You guys haven't told us that, but we kind of know we're closing, right? So I just want to say, and hear me loud and clear, that is not the case. There's been no decision to close the college. If that were the case, we would have told you already. All right, so I say that in all transparency and sincerity. The reality is, and this is the other thing I want to relay tonight, knowing that we will not have a community update on Monday, so I want to convey this tonight while we're all together. There are so many people fighting fiercely for the future of King's College. And I know that you, many students, many of you, I think of TPC letters, I think of all the prayer gatherings, students have been fighting, but it's not just students and faculty, staff, of course, alumni praying, giving. We've seen more alumni giving to Kings than ever. Half of our donors are new donors to Kings. Many of those are alumni that have just risen up and said, we want to help. Last night, there was a group of 50 or so alumni who met again to talk about how they can raise money for Kings. They're working together to do just that. They're calling through all of the King's alumni to ask them to join in and give. So that is happening. Parents, oh my gosh. I, as a dean of students, am used to getting angry, disgruntled calls from parents. But in the last 3 months, all I've gotten is parents calling, emailing, saying, we love Kings, we're fighting for Kings, we're praying for Kings. Many of them are giving very generously toward the cause. Board members, Henry Moriello, you guys may not even know that name, he's the chairman of our board. He has been fighting fiercely day and night, even though he's a full-time lawyer, fighting for Kings. And doing whatever he can in his power to ensure that we endure. We are in earnest, serious conversations with another entity about linking arms, and if that comes to fruition, and we'll know soon, within 7 to 10 days, we should know. If that comes to fruition, that will be a defining moment, for our future. So I would actually pray for that. Join us in praying for that. I am hopeful. I am sincerely hopeful. This community, this college needs to persist. It needs to be in New York City. Our mission is vital to the city. I think our mission is vital to our country. It needs to exist. And so we are fighting for that. We're fighting, standing with you in faith, in courage, trusting God to do great things in us, around us, and through us. So, Interregnum 19 has been fabulous. I say this as not as a statement of fact, but one of faith. I look forward to engaging in Interregnum 20 with many of you next year. So with that, Maddie, I'll turn it over.
Good evening, everyone. I hope this interregnum has treated you well. I hope you've had lots of snacks and you've made many unforgettable memories with your fellow house members and your peers. I know I thoroughly have enjoyed seeing everyone's creativity flourish these past few days. Kind of put that one away. I wanted to just take a few minutes to just commend and encourage you all. I know that we are amidst a season of great uncertainty, and for many of us, including those graduating alongside me in May, we don't know what the next few months entail, much less the next year. And despite the challenges that we've faced this semester, one undoubtable thing has really been confirmed in my mind, that King's and its students, we don't easily back down from a fight. From the fundraising campaigns that have been happening, to the TKC Letter Project, to the house retreats, and even to this interregnum, I've been so encouraged to see so many students continue to push forward and fight for the things which they care for so deeply. And I'm here to say that that fight isn't necessarily over yet. As you all know, around this time last year, I stepped into the position of SVP. And it's hard to believe that that time has once again emerged for a new SVP. This year has taken a great deal of persistence and courage and strength from all of us, but especially from your student leaders. And I only imagine that the next SVP and group of leaders will be dealing with a lot of the same, if not more, ongoing challenges as this past year. Next year, perhaps more than ever, will the need for student leadership be apparent. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the hesitance that comes with this level of uncertainty. It's so incredibly hard to take a step and not know where your foot is going to land. But as a student leader, I can also speak to how rewarding the experience is, and how formative it is to what King's is and what it can become. On that note, the packets for SVP are available on the student portal, and the deadline for turning that in has been extended to Monday at 5 p.m. As of right now, we are moving forward with the condensed election timeline, and the House election cycle is still slated to start beginning April 17th, so mark your calendars. If we continue forward into next year, which there is still hope for, as we just spoke about, it will be you guys, the freshmen, the sophomores, and the juniors, that carry the torch forward. So if you have any interest or any inquiries about the process, please feel free to reach out to Joey or Dean Leedy or myself. We would be more than happy to talk about it all with you. I'd like to leave you with two things. First, a thank you. Thank you for your grace, your patience, your flexibility through this time. I've never seen a community pull together and pull through like you guys have this past semester. You all are what makes King's great. And that has never been more apparent than it was these past 2 months. You guys have been so personally inspiring, and you have served as a constant reminder as to why I stepped into this position to serve you all in the first place. The second and final thing I want to leave you with is that your feelings are valid. Whether you're frustrated, or you're nervous, or you're excited to start a new chapter of life, or you're prepared to move on, or you're not quite ready to let go, or maybe it's a little bit of all of the above, it's all okay. What's more important than the feelings themselves is how you cope and respond to those feelings. So I encourage you now to take time to rest, to invest in yourself and the community directly around you, to learn and grow in the ways that you can, and to focus on your own personal flourishing wherever you may find it in this particular season. I see you guys, I love you guys, and I'm so thankful and proud to call you all and this place my home. Thanks.
At this time, I would like to welcome the debaters from the Houses of Truth and Susan B. Anthony to join us. Interregnum 19. Let's open with a word of prayer. Father God, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for the King's community. Thank you for all of the houses that we have gathered here tonight. Thank you for the theme of flourishing and for everybody here. I ask that you give us a fruitful evening where we can discuss this prompt and that we remember your hand in our community. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. At this time, I would like to have the speakers from the government and opposition teams respectively to come to the podium and state their name, house, and position.
My name is Kylia Ford. I am a member of the esteemed House of Susan B. Anthony. And I will be serving as the final debate round's Prime Minister. My name is Elizabeth Ford. I'm a member of the House of Susan B. Anthony, and I will be serving as the member of government. Hi, I'm Rochelle Thomas. I'm the president of the House of Sojourner Truth, and I'm the leader of the opposition.
Hello, my name is Ellie Stone. I am a member of the House of Truth, and I am a member of opposition.
I am proud to introduce our judges for this evening, Dr. Matthew Parks, Dean David Leedy, and our CFO, Jennifer Anderson. Thank you all so much for dedicating your time and energy for debating tonight. All right. This is just a reminder that protected time will be signaled with a singular clap, and that POIs can be signaled by raising a hand or standing. Time cues will be given in the final 30 seconds by holding up a 3-0, and time will be signaled by holding up a T. Okay. Tonight, our debate motion is the following. This House believes that in most situations, it is more beneficial for Christians to send their children to Christian schools rather than private schools, or public schools. I now welcome the Prime Minister to begin their constructive, not to exceed 7 minutes.
Because, as the way we are oriented right now, I cannot see you. So instead of raising your hand or standing, you can just say on this or say POI. That would be really helpful because facing this way, I cannot see you at all. So that means that yours going to be right there. Okay, stay. My time, panel ready? Are you ready? My time will start now. So we've all just heard the motion. I want to get into some definitional modeling to tell you what is this motion actually going to look like. We think in most situations, this shows us this motion is not an absolute. We believe that it is not our burden to show you why all Christian kids and all Christian parents must do this. We want to leave room for the exceptions. For the incredibly special students who really flourish in a specialized area, if you want to go to a magnet school, that is something that should be available to you. If you want to pursue a specific piece of higher education at a specific institution that is secular, like say you want to be an astrophysicist, and the local Christian institution near you is a liberal arts school that doesn't necessarily dabble in the sciences in that way, you should still have the ability to go to an astrophysicist magnet school. And so we think within the motion, the idea of most situations shows that this is not an absolute. Furthermore, this is not Christian education forever. We're going to get a little bit into the nature of Christian education, but we believe that once the kind of telos of education is finished, you do not necessarily need to have Christian education. Once you have the foundation of Christian principles, you no longer need a Christian education. This can look like going out to a Christian school from K through 12. This can look like being in Christian institutions all your life. This can look like going to a Christian elementary school. As long as you get those foundational things down, then this is what constitutes as a Christian school. Furthermore, we think that Christian schools are schools that not only believe, but act on theological principles. I'm thinking of Kings, we have a theological commitment, and this also comes through in things like praying before a class, or having a scheduled day of prayer and fasting, to kind of instill these Christian and moral values in an educational environment. I have 3 pieces of constructive. First, what is the nature of education? I'll repeat it for clarity. What is the nature of education? We believe education is propedeutic and preparatory in nature. This is a key aspect of a liberal arts education. You have to master the trivium before you can move on to the non-trivium. Before you can get up here and do the art of rhetoric, you must first learn how to speak. Before you can write like Shakespeare, you must first learn how to spell. Before you can go out and do the mission of the gospel, you must first learn what it is. We say that education is about moral formation just as it is about intellectual formation. Education comes together in the culmination of all these things to create a holistic human being. This can be a holistic secular human being, but because the motion is talking about Christian students, we believe this necessarily has a spiritual and moral component. My second point is cultural curriculums can sometimes be anti-Christian. This is an argument that I was really wrestling with because if you know me personally, I'm someone who grew up in a public school and came to King's later on in life. But I learned that oftentimes secular institutions can have commitments that are rigidly anti-Christian, and in particularly with doing the actor analysis of parents, that can be a problem. Secular schools' commitment to secular things can be fundamentally anti-religious. An example that I'm going to give you of this is evolution. Evolution is often pitted directly against creationism with no room for both. And looking at Christian institutions like the King's College, if you've ever taken Dr. Hershey's phenomenal class, you know that we can have these secular, or not even secular, because a lot of those thinkers were Christian, we can have these secular thinkers and secular concepts in a Christian format and still coming from a Christian perspective. We think that this is likely because society is growing more and more, not necessarily anti-Christian, but anti-religious. I think more and more people are leaving the church, the Christian church, and almost all the other churches. And so we see a tendency towards a more secular education. We think humans, like, I was thinking of animals. And we were talking earlier about reason. Humans are not like birds. We do not push our children out of the nest to fall and then fly. We nurture, we care, we instruct them, we develop them into what they should be. And we think this is why parents act as an effective safeguard against secular education, sometimes veering into heresy or sacrilege. And this is an important role that they play as parents who have the ability to protect, develop, and nurture their children. Christian education is particularly important because as we look back to the medievals, there used to be a pretty strong streak between Christianity and intellectualism. And I look at Augustine and his teacher, St. Ambrose, and the ability to have such complex intellectual pursuits coming from an explicitly Christian perspective. And we see that this is inherently valuable and something that we would like to recover on the government side. We should bring back the Aquinas, we should bring back the Augustines, we should bring back the Ambroses to get not only better Christian ideas and Christian institutions, but for the betterment of our general society and world. As I look at Galileo, someone who many of us did not know was actually a Christian, he and his commitment to Christianity not only bettered the church, but also bettered general society and the scientific community and operated from a perspective of a Christian worldview. How are we going to get better Christian intellectual institutions of the past without reinvigorating interest in Christian education for both students and parents? I don't know where you guys sit on Hillsdale, but from what I know about Hillsdale, it's supposedly an incredibly academically rigorous place. And if that is the closest thing that we have to the intellectual halls of the past, then I think that is a failure of Christians. And I think that we should be able to pursue much more rigorous and better intellectual pursuits. Furthermore, if people are leaving the church, we do not get any of these benefits that we give you. We both better the Christian environment, the Christian community, and the larger society. And then my last point that I want to touch on is, and I think the standard by which we should work on, is how can we best fulfill the mission of Christianity? How can we go out to Rehab House of Worship, which is one of our mission partners, if we do not know the gospel, if we cannot fill these questions of the very hard question of why does a good God let bad things happen to good people? How are we equipped to handle these questions if we have no religious and theological training? How can we handle these complex biblical questions when we do not know the Bible itself? At King's, I was a tour guide. I was a missions tour guide, and I was pretty darn good at it, if I say so myself. And so I did quite a bit of quasi-memorization of the mission statement. At King's, we start, and this is what's so important. We want to start with Christian education as the fundamental. We start with a commitment to the truths of Christianity. That's the direct quote, paraphrasing now. And only then can we, this is the money one, transform strategic institutions, public and private. And this is, I think, one of the most important parts of our mission statement, critically engaged culture. But we can only do that with the foundation of a Christian education.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your constructive, and I now welcome the Leader of the Opposition to begin their constructive, not to exceed 8 minutes.
Thank you, Carlita. That was really good. And hi to the judges. So first, I'm going to start by laying some of the foundation, and then I'm going to go into a rebuttal, and then we're going to go through some of our own points. Like Carlita was, I was also a tour guide, and I think I was also pretty good at it. Yes, we did learn that we have to have that foundation of Christianity. But going back to the prompt and going back to the word Christians, by Christians we also mean regularly church-attending Christians. So people who are in churches every Sunday, and people who even sometimes go to weekly services throughout the week to build that foundation. So these kids who are going to these schools have that foundation of Christianity. And then leading into a little bit of a rebuttal of some of their points. There are anti-Christian rhetorics in schools, yes, in some of them, in some public schools, but that actually nicely leads into some of our points. Going to a public school is an excellent way to challenge the beliefs that you learn in your foundation of going to the church. A lot of us have taken Professor Wilkinson's PCI class, and we know that there are a lot of ways that Christians should live in the world. And one of them that we learned is Christ transforming culture. And in that, we have people like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I think he was pretty effective. And this meant that, yes, he was in the world, but he wasn't of the world. And that is, as Christians, what we're called to do. So we're supposed to go out into the world, and we're supposed to see it, but we have that good foundation of Christianity in our churches. So yes, while it is sometimes hard to go out into the world and be a part of it and get challenged in your faith, this is actually the best way to grow your faith. I experienced this a lot my freshman year when I took Dr. Inez's class. I know his class was at a Christian school, but stay with me. So in his class, it was a political class, Foundations of Politics. And in his class, I knew I would be challenged because I went to a public school for a lot of my life, and a lot of it was in Tampa, Florida, and when I went to his class, I knew it would be challenging a lot of what I had learned. Challenging your beliefs doesn't mean that you have to stay on your side or completely go to the other one. It's a challenge. It makes you do research on your own. Being in a Christian foundation at the church and then going into a public school setting, it makes you think, do I actually agree with this? On the topic of evolution, I had learned the secular version of evolution my whole life, and when I took Dr. Hershey's class and I saw that it could be Christian, I thought, I need to research this myself. It made me stronger in my beliefs, it made me stronger in what I believe, because I was being able to be challenged in that way. Going to a public school, being around people, makes your faith your own. A lot of times, when people are in fully Christian schools, you can find yourself playing the part of being a Christian. You can see yourself doing it because everybody around you is doing it, but you need to choose that faith for yourself.
Do you think that there are not other opportunities for Christians, even if they are not necessarily in a public school, to critically engage culture, as Christianity encourages us to go out and do good works with other people, specifically marginalized groups? Please contend.
Yes, I do agree that there are a lot of other ways, but we're arguing that this way is more beneficial, because it is. If you're a parent and you're a Christian and you want your kid to have the strongest faith they can, you need to put forward the best opportunity for them. You need to put forward the best opportunity for them to be challenged. And to do this is to have that good, strong foundation of Christianity in the church, but then allow them to be challenged in the public school setting. Further, I already touched on this a little bit, but another one of our points is that being a Christian with a strong foundation, but then going to a public school, allows you to bring people to Christ. Yes, it's important that we do this after we graduate and in many other ways, but it's so easy when you're at school for people to say, that person's a little bit different, why? And you can say, it's because I go to church, and you can bring people to your church, and now you have friends in both church and at school, and you're bridging the two worlds. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can be in the church and go to a public school and find so many intersections between both of them. And finally, I would just like to say, yes, there are a lot of cases where it's really good to send your kids to a Christian school. I chose a Christian school myself, but it is more beneficial in many cases for Christians to send their kids to a public school.
Just a point note to the debaters, if you feel that the podium and the microphone need to be adjusted, please feel free to do so. Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for your constructive. We now turn to the Member of Government to offer their constructive, not to exceed 8 minutes. Is everyone ready? I shall begin. I would first like to begin with some rebuttal to what we just heard, and then I will launch into my 2 arguments. First, I would like to address the conversation that happened about how MLK was working to transform culture, and we agree he was. He was also attended Christian school growing up, and that's where he was able to find the basis of his beliefs. He grew up in that culture, and much of the civil rights movement was rooted in the Black church's commitment to bringing God's world down to us, to treating everyone as if they are individuals under God. And that was founded in the church. That was where MLK got all of his ideas from. Going off this, the opposition talked about how if you want your beliefs to be challenged, you must face them in public school. And while it is good to have your beliefs challenged, you can never really know what you believe until you know how to argue it. We don't believe that the only place that you would ever find opposition to your values is in public school. For example, there are many different denominations of Christianity. You may be Catholic, and you might meet Protestants and have to argue those beliefs, and you're facing challenges against that. You may play sports and be on an athletic team with people that disagree with you. That's very common, and that is where you would face that opposition outside of school. There are many other opportunities to face that opposition. But the problem is, if you don't grow up with that
education that's building that foundation, you won't be able to know what your beliefs truly are if you don't understand the religion itself. Which brings me into our arguments. The first argument of mine is that religion permeates all aspects of life. There is no area of life that religion does not affect, so why should we exclude it from our education? We all go to King's College. We all take classes in which religion is intertwined with every subject, no matter what it is. I remember talking to a friend pretty recently, and I talked about how there was one semester that all 5 of my classes talked about St. Augustine, and I was taking economics classes that semester because there is no aspect of the Christian life that religion does not affect, so it should be talked about in every aspect. It should not be excluded from our education. We have classes like Christianity in the City that talk about how we live in a relatively secular city, and like I was talking about, you are confronted with people that disagree with your beliefs, and you do have to wrestle with your own beliefs and decide. And Christianity in the City talks about how to talk to people who disagree with you. It talks about how to live in the secular world, because you can be at a Christian school and still communicate with people who disagree with you. We have classes like Dr. Rich's scientific reasoning class, in which he's writing his own textbook so that we can have a good Christian-based science textbook, because he really highlights how many scientists, such as Galileo, that have led to our groundbreaking discoveries, were Christians because they studied with Christians, because Christianity was a big, important motivator for their discoveries. So it is important not to remove the fact that they were Christians from that conversation when it was their motivator for doing what they were doing. When you take science classes at a secular institution, they may put a spin on it that is more secular, and you may not be getting the education that shows you God's creation and why God created what he did, why he created it in the way he did, how to wrestle with the ideas of the creation of the earth in relation to Genesis. You need those conversations to be mixed together. You can know about the creation of the earth and you can know about Genesis, but unless you're talking about them in the same conversation, you don't really understand how they interact, and they need to be intertwined in that way. My second point is that I would like to talk about the importance of being intentionally Christian in a fallen world. We live in a post-Christian world, so we should and must be intentional about our children's communities. As my partner Kelly brought up, there are less and less people identifying as Christian as time goes on. Year by year, the stats continue to go down, and there are more people who are identifying with no religion whatsoever, and so that is creating a much more secular world. So we must be intentional about the communities that we put our children in when so many of those communities are inherently secular. We don't know the values that the other children were brought up with, and it is important that while our kids are forming, while their brains are forming, while they are forming their values, we place them in an environment in which similar values will have been instilled in the children they're hanging out with. Going along with this, as time goes on, we're entering a more secular society, we are losing Christian philosophers. Many philosophers today that are Christian are hesitant to add Christianity into their philosophy, to even include in their writings that they are a Christian out of fear that it will make them seem less credible. And it's not because they are less credible, but it is because they're living in a secular world. If those philosophers had the opportunities, like the philosophers of the medieval age, to study with other philosophers who were openly Christian like them, they may not be as afraid to spread their Christian faith, to include in their writings that they are Christian, because it strengthens your faith to be surrounded by other Christians. You can see that in the works of St. Augustine. It wasn't until he studied with secular philosophers, and he really searched for knowledge, and it wasn't until he sat down and studied with the Christians that he was fulfilled in his faith, and he was able to become a very serious Christian. And so that brings me to a more personal story. I actually grew up in public school, and I also grew up going to church every week, multiple times a week. And I was never very serious about my faith. It wasn't until I came to King's where religion was intertwined with my education that I declared a theology minor, because I realized that I did want to know more. I realized that even though I grew up in the church, as the opposition has talked about, that didn't set the foundation for me. I realized that I didn't know as much about the Bible, about different stories, about the authors, as my peers who went to Christian schools growing up. And so, for those reasons, we believe that you should send your kids to Christian schools. Thank you.
Thank you, member of government, for your constructive. I now welcome the member of the opposition to begin their constructive, not to exceed 8 minutes.
Go through some rebuttals, and then go back into our main points. As a reminder, our thesis is that it is more beneficial for Christian parents to send their children to public schools, not Christian schools, towards the end of flourishing both individually and communally. Now moving into some rebuttals, I'm going to talk through what the government has said about education as foundational learning. We agree that education is a foundational part of learning, but not all education happens in schools. Christian education can happen in the church setting or even in the home setting. They also said that no aspect of Christian life is not addressed within a Christian ethic. We would agree that you can extend that into public school as well. It speaks to that as well, even though it is public school. I would like to point out that parents can play.
If you believe that this cultivation comes in the church or in the home, why not send your child to a religious co-op or even homeschool them?
That can be an option that you pursue, but we would argue that it is more beneficial to send your children to public school. And that actually works well with one of my examples that I will go into in a minute. Their second point was that cultural politics can be anti-Christian, and while it is true, that works great with my second point, which is that challenging of your beliefs is a really good way to ensure that you are secure in what you believe. It's very easy to grow up in church, know exactly the things to say, know exactly who to be, so that everyone believes that you are like the best kind of Christian. That's something that I did growing up, and it was not difficult to appear Christian in the church while not really believing it. It was going to public school that challenged me in what I believed and said, okay, I need to actually figure out why I believe this thing that I'm talking about instead of just the fact that I believe it. I can tell you all the facts, but do I actually believe what I'm saying? And it took public school to teach me that.
King's is a Christian institution. Do you think that it does not challenge your beliefs?
It does challenge my beliefs. I would just argue that it was incredibly beneficial for me to have gone to public school before going to King's. My second point that I would like to go through is the Christian bubble. When we don't step outside of our Christian bubble, it's really difficult to pursue full flourishing for ourselves and community. We would argue that full flourishing is not fully possible until we reach the second coming of Christ and everything is made perfect again. If we are not stepping out of our bubble and talking to other people who are not believers and sharing faith with them, they will not be able to take part in this full flourishing. So going to public school is incredibly important for us to pursue both our own flourishing and flourishing of others. Through the examples that I have shown you, both in the need to break out of our bubbles and bring more souls to Christ through going to public school, and by challenging our beliefs in a public setting while maintaining a solid Christian community through the church is more beneficial than sending your kids to a Christian school. You can go to a Christian school and learn what to believe,
But by being challenged in public schools, that is the most beneficial way to learn why many people believe. That would be something that Christian parents desire to see in their children. Therefore, they should send them to public schools. Member of opposition, for your constructive. I now welcome the leader of the opposition to return to the floor and offer their rebuttal, not to exceed 6 minutes, and where they may offer no new constructive arguments.
So, before I begin my closing, I'd like to talk one more time about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, he did go to Christian school. But as I just recently studied him, I learned that he had kids himself. And he sent those kids for a few years to public schools. And that's because, yes, he did go to Christian school and he became one of the most brilliant scholars ever, and he made so much change in our world. He still understood that for them to fully flourish, which is what we're debating here, for the most beneficial end in flourishing, you need to be in public school for a time. It's beneficial to you, like Ellie said, to challenge your beliefs. They got excellent beliefs in their home. Their father was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But even he knew that you needed to go to public school to be challenged in that way. Also, they said that religion covers all aspects of life, and it should include school. And while that is very true, if you're going to be a good spiritual leader and you're going to combat that, you need to know what you're up against. And yes, there are a lot of ways to know what you're up against in the world and of the world. But an excellent way to do this as a parent is to make sure that your child is exposed every day to what they're going to be up against when they graduate. Yes, a member of the government chose to come to King's and then flourished and then got that faith. But going to public school, even though she went to public school, she chose to come to a Christian school at the end of it. A lot of us here went to public school and then chose to come to a Christian school. And we're talking about parents sending their kids places. We're talking about K through 12. It's important at some point, it doesn't have to be the whole time, at some point it's important for those kids to go to public school and be exposed.
In our definition of what does it mean to go to a Christian school, we just say when the purpose of education has been fulfilled. I said explicitly in the modeling, you do not necessarily have to go to a Christian school forever, so that seems fundamentally at odds with what you're saying.
Yes, so no, you don't have to go to a Christian school forever. But even going to a Christian school for a small amount of time can lead to what Ellie was talking about earlier, that faking your Christianity, that doing something because everybody around you is doing it. So we think that it's more beneficial to go to that public school setting. And we're not saying it's bad to go to a Christian school, we're just saying it's more beneficial to go to a public school. Finally, before I go back into my points, I'm going to say our thesis one more time. This house believes that in most situations, it's more beneficial for Christian parents to send their children to public, not Christian schools toward the end of flourishing both individually and in community. These parents understand that they want their kids to have the best opportunities to flourish. And to do this, our first point is they need to be able to understand how to bring people to Christ. They need to learn this from a young age, from that foundation in the church, because as a Christian, you're going to church regularly, and that's what we mean by Christian. But then you go to a public school, and you see that you're different from everybody else, and maybe they wonder why, and maybe it draws them into the church, and maybe when you grow up, you can do the same thing, because you've learned it so well throughout your life as a child. We also said that it's a challenge of beliefs. We've talked in depth about this challenge of beliefs and why it's so important for you to flourish and more beneficial for the parents to send their kids here. Faith needs to be something that you choose on your own. And for you to choose this on your own, you need to be able to have that foundation in the church. And yes, there are so many ways for you to get this secular worldview, sports clubs, as they said. There are so many ways. But for parents who are Christian, who want to give their kids the best chance, it's more beneficial for them to go to a public school.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for your rebuttal. I now welcome the Prime Minister to close the round with their rebuttal that may not exceed 7 minutes and wherein they may offer no new constructive arguments.
Panel ready? Are you ready? My time begins now. So first I'm going to launch into some points of rebuttal and real big contentions that we've gotten through the debate, and then I'm going to show you exactly what the side government has brought you and the things that side opposition did not even contend with. So first, we have this idea that Christians include people who regularly attend church. Oh my gosh, if you knew me freshman year, I was a train wreck. I was drinking a lot. I could not run for any student leadership, but I was a priester. And I went to church every Sunday. And actually, I had a poor home life, so I went to church not only on Sunday, but I would go to youth group on Wednesday nights too. And so are we really calling these youth groups that are pizza parties, these pizza having pool parties, are these where we're truly getting a Christian education? Are you getting a Christian education if you sit in the pews on Sunday, fiddling with your dress, and maybe not actually listening to what's being said? So we don't think that just because you can go to church every Sunday and Wednesday on youth group nights necessarily constitutes you having a robust Christian foundation. Second, we talk about how in education and schools is a place where you can transform culture. We totally believe this. We also think that this is not mutually exclusive to schools. There are other institutions in which you can transform culture. On the train ride that you ride to school with, on the train ride that you have every day as a part of your commute, that is where you can change culture. For children, when you go to your sports, that is where you can change culture. How many times in school are we actually out of the, and think of primary school or middle school or high school, how many times are we actually out of the curriculum and having just full-on Socratic seminars where everyone can no holds barred and just give their opinions on many things? Furthermore, if you were to start these blatantly Christian opinions, I don't know how well they would be accepted in schools. We think that there are other leisure activities that you do that enable you to transform culture and challenge these ideas, that you run into these ideas that we agree with opposition are so important that you run into. We think that school is a unique institution to retain this Christian integrity because it is foundational. How are you going to contend with these ideas when you do not yet know what you believe? How are you going to contend with these complex philosophical discussions that Op says that you are having if you do not know the gospel, if you do not know your Bible verses, if you cannot tell me what the real story of Babel is? It's not about reaching the tower, it's about being dispersed. You don't have these complex ideas if you do not go to a Christian institution to learn them. Furthermore, this whole MLK thing. MLK did not send his children to school as a rejection of Christian education. It was a show to show the support of integration, as we recently got. I'm an MLK Malcolm X fan, so I know my way around MLK. Furthermore, I'm a Dr. Reverse, a phenomenal professor. All of you should take her if the school stays open and you have the chance. We're in this class called the Black Church and Slavery and Freedom. The Black Church was the institution that brought us Black education, which is the institution that brought us civil rights. They were all protected, and you cannot separate Christian education from civil rights. And I think it's preposterous that Up tries to do so with the illustration of Martin Luther King, of all people. Second, I want to get into this part of playing Christianity. We think this can happen anywhere. We have students at King's playing Christianity, we have students in secular schools playing Christianity. But I ask you this, would you rather habituate, because as I said in my modeling, a Christian institution is an institution that not only thinks about theological principles, but acts on them. Would you rather have a student who is habituated in Christian holidays and in Christian theology and Christian activities, or would you just rather send them on to the wolves of public school where they do not have any of this structure? We think our children who are a unique actor because they are young and moldable. We think that these children, best case, if they can play Christianity in either environment, we think we're getting less playing of Christianity because they are habituated in their environment and what to do. Christianity, you can leave God when you leave the parking lot of your church, or you can go see him every single day when you go back to school. And so we think that under our side of the house, we are not, children are less likely to play Christianity because Christianity is not only confined to Sundays and Wednesday nights. Last piece of rebuttal, the Christian bubble. If you're stuck in a Christian bubble, that is your fault. There are so many places and spaces where you can escape that Christian bubble. You're a Christian and educational institution in New York City, and I wonder how many of the residents are ordering behind the 2 rows. And if you don't, that is your fault. You have many opportunities to interact with these people every day, and you choose not to. Furthermore, have you seen a high school cafeteria? It is incredibly cliquish. I do not know where Op gets this idea that high schools are some public high schools at that, are some incredibly integrated thing where you're going across race and social class and all of these different demographics. When if you look at the data, New Jersey high schools, sorry for New Jerseyans, are some of the most segregated institutions in the nation. Rebuttal. What do we give you? So we give you you this idea that Christianity should permeate all aspects of life. My partner Elizabeth did some phenomenal analysis on this, and we totally believe that. We believe that Christianity should permeate all aspects of your life when you're in the church, when you're outside of the church, when you're at school. And we think that this should happen, but school is a unique institution that ought to retain its Christian integrity. We bring you the idea of why education is a unique institution that retains its integrity. I gave you some phenomenal analysis at the beginning on the nature of education. This is fundamental. We were talking about Ob tells you all of these ideas of transforming culture, but how are you going to transform it when you don't know what you're transforming it with? How are you going to emulate Jesus Christ when you do not know who he is and what his works are? We also see this, there's often a hostility of secular education towards Christianity, and we find this is not adequately contended with at all. How are you going to get rid of you acknowledge that this is happening, but you give me no solvency for the problem. You just say, this is you getting clashed with your ideas, but what happens when you are clashed with those ideas and they overtake you because you are a child, because you are still being educated, because you still have not learned your foundations? Lastly, we give you, and I think this is an amazing point that has not been contended with, the recovery of Christian intellectual hubs that we have with Augustine, Aquinas, and Ambrose. They're not only giving us the best Christian philosophers, but the best general philosophers. We are getting better philosophy, and let's be Aristotelian here. You're getting better eudaimonia, better human flourishing when we bring back the Christian educational institution. We have provided multiple examples of a lot of these things, and I'm going to use my last 30 seconds to talk about why I was an example of someone who's done this. I was crazy, absolutely crazy. And it wasn't until I came to King's that I had the ability to know to have a holistic education, to have a moral education, and not only moral education, but an intellectual education. And I'm someone who talks to random homeless people. I do it all the time. I'm like, hey, let me buy McDonald's. The only way that I'm able to contend with the questions that they are asking me and to critically interact with my community is because of my foundational Christianity.
Go deliberate. I'll tell you where you're going to deliberate.
For this excellent final round. Thank you to the House of Susan B. Anthony and Sojourner Truth.
For joining us here tonight, although once again it is mandatory, you didn't have much choice, but thank you anyway. I hope you all have found this interregnum as enjoyable and beneficial as we have. We first want to thank our committee. This week would not have happened without them. Your camaraderie, enthusiasm, and hard work do not go unnoticed, and we love each one of you for it. We also would like to thank the staff and faculty for their willingness to judge and to support this competition as a whole. But most importantly, we want to thank you, the student body, for showing up, for participating. You guys make Interregnum what it is. We can do all the work, judges can show up, we can be excited, but if you guys don't bring the hype, the drive, the competition, Interregnum cannot be pulled off. So thank you for showing up and doing the work.
I don't know if you guys know much about the history of Interregnum. I certainly didn't know its origins. But there's this great thing that I think y'all have heard of, the T&C Letters Project. Well, there's one letter on there the first interregnum chair. And the theme was chosen for them at that point, and it was difficulty. And man, did she have a difficult task ahead of her, one that has been passed down to every interregnum chair since, and that's make a mandatory academic event fun. But she persevered, and interregnum flourished for 19 years. And the competitions have changed and evolved over the years, but ultimately the goal of coming together as a school for a set time to discuss a theme has stood the test of time and has become an integral part of what sets us apart and allows us to flourish. And now we have a theme that seems to be the exact opposite of Ashley's amidst our own time of difficulty. In our conversations this summer, we worked through quite a few theme options, but after a few weeks of meetings, we recognized similarities in many of them. We all seem to be drawn to this idea of what it means to live and pursue a good life. And so we settled on flourishing. Dr. Pennington talked about how the goal of Christianity is to seek the good life, to pursue flourishing. And that is exactly what our goal was in exploring this theme way back last summer. And now we have been challenged more than we ever thought we would be by this semester.
We've had to ask the question, what does it look like to flourish within ourselves and our community when what's going on around us seems to contradict the very idea? What role does that community play? What role does therapy play? The American dream, ambition. Is flourishing just the pursuit of a utopia, or do we need suffering to experience flourishing? Yes, you didn't have a choice in debating these topics and attending these events, but we hope these competitions were meaningful. Even though it might just feel like late nights, early mornings, essays, films, readings, debates, tech problems, sweaty city rooms, and freezing random themed debates, it is not in vain. Because each of these essays, each of these readings, each of these debates has given us the chance to grow in our own pursuit of flourishing as individuals and as a community. And it has been such a joy to see the way that we have embraced this chance together and flourished throughout it.
And now, after all of that, we're bringing Interregnum 19 to a close. You did it. Congratulations. That this discussion doesn't end here, because we've really only begun to scratch the surface of what flourishing looks like. Still, after 2 weekends of competition, we are all that much closer. So let's keep talking about it. Let's keep pursuing flourishing even when we get interregnum results, even when we get more news about Kings, even when we graduate. It's not a fruitless search. We are promised an abundant life ultimately. So let's pursue it now. Thank you guys. We're going to do a quick little introduction of our committee, just as a little refresher, because sometimes we need that.
that staff.
Now we will be announcing all the winners, starting with fall competition. With impromptu lecture, in third place we had the House of Corey Ten Boom. In second place we had the House of Sir Winston Churchill. And in third place the House of Sojourner Truth.
For academic writing in the fall, third place went to the House of Queen Elizabeth I. Second place went to the House of Clara Barton. And first place went to the House of Corey Ten Boom. And I will be announcing the results of Great Speech. In third place is the House of Susan B. Anthony. In second place is the House of Ronald Reagan. And in first place for Great Speech is the House of Truth.
For our 24-hour film festival, we had a second place tie between the House of C.S. Lewis and the House of Margaret Thatcher. And in first place for film comp was the House of Corey Ten Boom.
Okay, and for fall interregnum overall, we had a third place tie between SBA and the House of Reagan. Second place, the House of Truth. And third place, the House of Corey Ten Boom.
And for spring pre-credit event, the Adult Bowl, in third place we have the House of Truth. In third place we have the House of Thatcher. And in fourth place we have the House of Hindu. For our spring creative writing competition, in third place was the House of Sojourner Truth. In second place is the House of Corey Ten Boom. And in first place is the House of Queen Elizabeth I.
Bonhoeffer. In second place, we have the House of Ronald Reagan. And in first place, we have the House of Corey Ten Boom.
And for performing alt, in third place, we have the House of Susan B. Anthony. Have the House of Margaret Thatcher. Alright, so for 36-hour digital art, in third place is the House of Margaret Thatcher. In second place for 36-hour art is the House of Huey 1. the House of Susan B. Anthony.
For spring overall, we have in third place the House of Susan B. Anthony. In second place, we have the House of Corey Ten Boom. And in first place for Spring Interregnum, the House of Sojourner Truth.
So for the Interregnum Cup, in third place, the House of SBA. In second place, the House of Corey Ten Boom. This one's special. For the first time ever.
Congratulations to the House of Truth. All right, guys, we're going to give out the House Cup, this big heavy trophy behind me in a second. But if you'll indulge me on this, take a couple minutes just to set the stage. This was a unique year for the House Cup. We got rid of one competition to try to make it just a little bit easier on your time and moved to 5 competitions. But along with that, we added bigger bonus point incentives. The bonus points this year were basically worth an entire competition in and of themselves. And so bonus points were getting submitted all throughout the year, and you didn't know what any other house was doing. And so it's kind of this secret competition that was happening throughout the year, so you never really knew exactly where you're standing, and you're probably sitting there trying to figure out those bonus points right now, not knowing exactly where you stand. So it's been a really fun year. We wanted to highlight a few of sort of our best memories of what's happened in the House Cup throughout the year. Going back to the Great Race, this was the first year in a long time that all 10 houses got all the way through the Great Race. Not that everyone survived there, that happens every year. What I mean is all 10 houses got to see all of the clues and got to the finish line actually before our time was up. For Drama Comp, we had some really great performances for Drama Comp. And my favorite memory of Drama Comp is when we announced second place and Reagan, for some reason, turned and ran to the woods. Complete darkness, dodging trees and stuff. For Drama Comp this year, the House of Thatcher had the highest GPA we've ever had. So guys have just heard about Interregnum, this has been one of the closest Interregnums that we've had in a number of years. And so congratulations to all of you for how well you've done throughout the course of the year. You know, the House Cup, this giant competition, this year-long endeavor, is not just about what place you get and how you do. You guys have yelled at each other, you've laughed with each other, you've cried with each other, you've screamed, there's been a lot of screaming. The idea behind these competitions is not just to see how well you can do, but to see how you come together as a team and how you interact with one another at large. And so I want to applaud you for all of the times that you guys have shown that competition and unity aren't mutually exclusive, and have had a real focus this year on building up not just your own house, but all of the houses together. Well done. These competitions are meant to give you a chance to exercise your character, to learn a little bit about yourself, to learn how to be better moving forward, and how to engage in communal and individual excellence. So you guys have done very well, and it culminates with someone getting this big heavy trophy tonight. So without further ado, we're going to announce the winners. What I want to make sure, when we announce just first place, they'll be able to come up in that house and get the trophy. I want to make sure that after that, that'll be our final thing and kind of the close of tonight. That house will be able to take a house photo up here, and then you guys can come up one at a time and take house photos. We can't stress this enough. Please stay off of these maroon purplish cushions when you come up here. It's kind of it's an altar at this church. It's a really sacred spot for them. They have worked with us for many years, allowing us to use this place. So that's their number one concern. So please honor that by just not touching those at all. Okay. Without any further ado, we'll give you the results for the House Cup.
Okay, so this year there's actually a tie for second place. So one of those houses is the house of Corey Ten Boom. The second tie is the house of Margaret Thatcher.
First place in this year's House Cup, the small but mighty House of Dietrich Bonhoeffer.